Thank you, Ashton, for the inspiring speech and for celebrating the commencement of Class of 2020 with us. My name is Jungyeon Park, and I'm one of the program marshals. I'm excited to introduce the next speaker, Olivia Nie, who is our Harvard Orator. Olivia is a proud Canadian from Toronto and was a resident of Courier House. She concentrated in government and has amazing talents in photography, art, and fashion. She's a very thoughtful and kind person, and I'm so proud to call her my friend. Please join me in welcoming Olivia to the stage.
I've always been fascinated by the world around me and the people that populate it. As a child, I was enthralled by any book, any documentary, newsreel, anything that could reveal a new part of the mysterious and expansive world that we lived in. I used to devour articles in National Geographic about short-horned lizards, and I remember even being captivated by news features on the thriving art community in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It wasn't enough for me, however, to simply absorb all this. I had a big green binder in which I transcribed everything I learned, compiling my own scattered anthology of worldly knowledge. One of my favorite books to transcribe from was The Century, a tome of 20th century history presented through the eyes of ordinary people. Its pages offered snapshots into immigrant stories amidst the Los Angeles riots. They taught me about sacrifice after the 1929 stock market crash and loss during the AIDS crisis. These stories were heavy, and the nuances were often hard to understand at that age. But one thing was clear to me. They took place in a world that was ever-changing, scary, beautiful, and very unpredictable. My curiosity for the world has stayed with me into adulthood. Perhaps unsurprisingly, I studied government at Harvard. And during this time, so many new windows into the world were opened to me, and I stepped into countless different shoes through space and time. The little girl with the big green binder would have been astounded by the vastness of knowledge that she would come to explore. At Harvard, I analyzed forbidden romance literature from modern China. I explored policies addressing environmental racism and conducted several of my own independent studies in sustainability in the luxury fashion industry. Instead of simply recording stories, I could now weave the lessons and the knowledge that I accumulated into my own projects. In my 4 years here, Harvard constantly urged me to develop my own opinions on these experiences and lessons, and to think deeply about the analytical processes that it took for me to get there. I was taught to examine, formulate, and extract using frameworks and lenses that completely changed the way I intake knowledge. Harvard also, however, completely changed the way I intake emotions and experiences. In the same way Harvard has urged me to look deeper into my intellectual pursuits, it has made me acutely aware and more keenly introspective about my experiences, feelings, and values. When a tutor stays with you for hours at HUHS so you're not alone, you have a model for selflessness. When you see an old friend from across the yard and you see a smile start to come across their face and you feel your own face start to smile, you're reminded of how great it is to be connected with one another in fellowship. When you come back home to Courier after a long day and the dining hall is still open, that's gratitude. Our lives are constantly filled with moments like these. And though small, they are poignant in molding our characters and principles. Now, the development of values and the awareness of deep-rooted feelings are obviously not singularly born of the Harvard experience. All of us went into college as vessels sculpted and forged by our families and local communities. Tenacity and diligence were values that I saw all my life through my parents, who left China with almost nothing and built a life in Canada from the ground up despite having earned years of degrees back in their homeland. Faith is something that I constantly have to strengthen every time I witness or experience instability and injustice in the communities dear to me. We all brought life stories and values into college, and since leaving, we've continued to be shaped by life after Harvard. And this is incredibly important to remember because, like we often say here, Harvard is a bubble. Harvard is a safe place for us to pursue our passions without fear of prosecution, a place that allows us to comfortably test run and prep for the careers that we've all begun now. It's a place that lets us practice how to occupy uncomfortable spaces and often pushed us to and past our limits in preparation for life ahead. Before Harvard, I never thought that I could vehemently disagree with someone and still be their best friend. I also never knew how fast I could run to catch the 10:30 quad shuttle for my 10:30 class, having just rolled out of bed 10 minutes before. I'm thankful for all of these character-shaping experiences and for the opportunity to have made mistakes, learned and grown in a space like Harvard's. But Harvard is a place that automatically bestows a level of privilege to any who have access to it. And the world we live in is not nearly as safe or as comfortable or privileged as the Harvard bubble. As we've all witnessed over our lifetimes and certainly over the last 2 years, there are an incalculable number of events that this institution could have never fully prepared us for. Harvard, much like the books and documentaries and news features that I've always loved, can only take us so far on its own. Class of 2020, I may be biased, but I believe we are a very special group of people. With the era of COVID joining us at a crucial point in our lives, it was amazing to see my peers power through a difficult final semester and into the first years of a working world that no one has navigated quite like this before. In present time, however, we still face a world that is plagued by past wrongdoings, present fears, and future uncertainties. It can be tiring and daunting to even think about how or when or where to devote our energy and time. But remember that every one of us and every one of our lives is a legacy in the making, and that we all have the tools we need to make the world a better place. It's a bit cliche, I know, but hear me out. We have had the unique opportunity to live and study at one of the world's most resourceful, best institutions, and it would be irresponsible to ignore what Harvard has given each and every one of us. Scholarly journals and articles have their limits, but they are nevertheless indispensable. When combined with the unique lived experiences, communities, and values that we each hold dear, we end up with a toolkit that can truly change the world. I know we all have personal stories that reflect the brokenness of this world, and we all know this world needs a whole lot of repairing. But I'm hopeful. I have already witnessed so much integrity and resolve among all of you in the last 2 years in truly every industry and space in purposeful ways, both big and small. And I am frankly just so proud to be a part of this graduating class. I want to leave you with just one more thing to remember. The feelings we feel and the lessons we learn from seemingly little things make minor but meaningful etches into our characters and values. They teach us to be caring, empathetic, and attentive to the people and environments around us. They lay the groundwork for further experiences and knowledge that will ultimately shape us into the leaders this world needs. Like countless people over centuries and places, it is ordinary and yet extraordinary people like us that have set the foundation for the lessons of tomorrow. The little girl who loved compiling the world into her big green binder will always be a part of me. But I know now that I also have a responsibility that I hope you'll all pledge to share with me. And that is to live our lives as models for posterity, in all the little and big things we do, in all the myriad spheres that we occupy. I hope that someday my kids and grandkids will have their own versions of a big green binder that they can channel their passions and imaginations in. But more than that, I hope that they will get to live in and be inspired by a world that we, the class of 2020, will have changed for the better. Thank you and congratulations.